Okay, so today we're going to be learning about multiplicative or additive relationships. And as you can see here, we have our little clover leaf or flower for multiplicative, and then we have one for additive. A multiplicative relationship, basically, you are taking x, which is just a number, and you're multiplying it by another number every time. So you could have y equals 2x, which means y equals 2 times x. Or y equals 100x. Basically, you're taking your x value, multiplying it by the same number every time, and you're getting out that y value. So that's multiplicative. Multiplying, that's why it's called multiplicative. Then we have additive. And additive, well, you're taking your x and you're adding something to it every time, and you're always adding the same thing. So with multiplicative and with additive, the key is that you are either multiplying by the same number every time for multiplicative or adding the same number every time for additive. So we're going to go ahead and we'll start. We're going to fill out the additive one. So we're going to start filling in here. It says each sum is found by adding the same number to an addend. Okay, so we have y equals x plus a, where y is your sum, x is your addend, and a is the same number. Okay, so you're just taking a number and you're adding the same thing every time. So we have our table over here, and you're gonna be seeing several different representations of different relationships. So you can have a table, you can have a graph, you can have an equation, and you can have in words. So we have our table here. Let's say that x is 0, and we're adding 4 to it. Okay, so 0, what would you add to 0 to get out 4? Well, you'd add 4. So then what if x is 1? Okay, we have 1 and then we add 4 to it because we're adding the same thing every time. You're going to get out 5. 2, what's 2 plus 4? 6. 3, add 4 to it, you get out 7. And 4, you add 4 to it, you get out 8. Okay, so we're going to come in here and we're going to start filling in our little petals. So we have verbally, and that means in words. We have y is 4 more than x. Okay, y is 4 more than x. So whatever x is, you add 4 to it, and that gives you y. Okay, and symbols. So we'll have symbolically. You're going to have y equals x plus 4. So y equals x plus 4. That's in symbols. And then we can do numerically. So if x, you can kind of turn a little bit. So numerically, if x equals 2, then y equals 2 plus 4, which is 6. So if x equals 2, then y is equal to 2 plus 4, which is 6. Sorry about the camera there. Okay, hopefully it will stay focused. All right, and then graphically. So that's our last way to represent. So with a graph. Okay, and where you get your points for your graph is from your table. So we already filled that in. Remember we said that we were taking x and we were adding 4 to it every time. So 0 plus 4 is 4, 1 plus 4 is 5. Now we're just going to graph that. Your x always goes on the horizontal axis, so label that with an x, and your y goes on the vertical axis. And so we've got 0 right here, 1, 2, 3, and 4. So we need to label that. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then our y values. It starts at 4 and it goes all the way up to 8. So we're going to have to kind of count by a little broken scale here. So I'm just going to show this, like show a little squiggle there, and that's a broken scale. So we can still count by ones. So we have 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. All right, so when x is 0, y is 4. So we put a dot there, 0, 4. When x is 1, y is 5. So you go up 1, mark it where the 5 is. When x is 2, y is 6. When x is 3, y is 7. When x is 4, y is 8. So right there, and it should make a pretty straight line. Well, it should make a straight line because this is a linear relationship. That means it makes a line. Now, one thing I want you to notice, look where that graph goes through. Does it go through the origin right there in the middle? No. It starts somewhere up here on your y-axis. So that's going to be a key point about the difference between an additive and a multiplicative relationship. Okay, now we're going to move on to multiplicative. So we have, we'll start with the definition. Each product is found by multiplying the same number by a factor. So basically, you're taking a number and you're multiplying it by the same thing every time. So you have y equals ax. And remember, if you have a number in front of your variable, so a is a number, okay? If you have a number in front of your variable, then it means you're multiplying. So you have your product, that's y. You have the same number every time. And try to make sure that as you're writing these, that all your definitions and stuff fit inside these boxes. Because we will, you'll have the option to kind of cut them out and paste them into your notebook. If you don't want to do all that cutting, then it's okay if you write outside the lines. And then x is going to be our factor. All right, and so we'll actually start here with our little petals first. So we're going to say verbally. So we're going to say it in words. Verbally. It is y is 3 times the value of x. So essentially what they're saying is that y equals whatever x is times 3. And so the way that you write that symbolically, so with symbols, y equals 3x. And that means 3 times x. Okay, now whenever you are writing these equations, remember the number comes before that variable because your number is called a coefficient. And we'll be learning more about that soon, but your number always goes in front of the variable. So y equals x3, that would not be the proper way to write it. It's y equals 3x. And also it goes along with how you said it. 3 times x, 3 times x. Now in numbers, so numerically, let's say if x equals 1, y is equal to 3 times 1, which is 3. Okay, and notice how instead of x I put parentheses and put the number I was substituting in there. And then in order to do the graph, we're going to first have to make our table. Alright, so we're always going to start off here with 0. So when x is 0, well, what is 0 times 3? 0. When x is 1, what is 1 times 3? It's 3. So x is 1, y is 3. When x is 2, well, 2 times 3, that's 6, so y is 6. When x is 3, multiply by 3, we get 9, that's y. And then 4. When x is 4 times 3, that's 12, that's our y. So now we're going to go up here and we're going to plot it. The x-axis, we can count by 1. So we got 0 right there. We got 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now our y-axis, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 blanks. So we're going to count by 3s. So here we go. We got 3, 6, 9, and 12. Okay, so we are plotting. Sorry, the video cut off before there. So if you got 0, 0, it's right there in the origin. Our next point was 1, 3. So when x was 1, y was 3. Our next point, 2, 6. X is 2, y is 6. Then we have 3, 9. And finally, 4, 12. So make sure you plot that on your graph. Now, one thing I do want to point out, the key difference between multiplicative and additive. A multiplicative one, you can tell it's multiplicative because it goes through the origin, 0, 0. Do you see how our line goes right to the corner of the graph, to the origin? That's multiplicative right there. If you have your graph and it does not go through the origin, you see how this one intersects the y-axis up here at 4? That means that it is additive. So additive relationships do not go through the origin. So I want you to make that note. Additive does not go through the origin. Multiplicative does go through the origin. Okay? So additive and multiplicative, you're either multiplying x by something every time or you're adding something to x every time. And you're multiplying by the same number or adding the same number. And just kind of looking at your graph, looking at your table, all the verbal descriptions or the numerical descriptions, that's going to help you decide between the two. You can stop here and just tape this page into your notebook, or you can let me pause the video and then I'll show you how you can cut it out and glue it into your notebook and make it look all nice. So I'm going to pause and show you how you should put it in your notebook. Alright, so here we are. I've gone through and I've cut everything out, and you're going to want to glue all these things into your notebook. Make sure that you have the additive stuff all together, and same thing with the multiplicative. And as you can see here, I've taken the petals on this and folded them in, and so that's how you're going to want to do it, because you're going to put glue. So you'll have it all folded in like this. Okay, and then you're going to put glue on the back side here on the little square part, and then you're going to glue it in. Now make sure though that you don't glue it in upside down. So kind of put the glue on the square part and then open it up so you could see how you're going to glue it down. And then once you've got it in there, you can just fold it up, and so then when you're studying you can unfold the little things and see them. And just make sure you do that with the multiplicative one as well, and then you're good to go. So make sure you glue all these things in because you don't want you losing them. And if you are not going to cut them out, then just, you know, tape it or glue it in, fold it in half, just like we always do. So see you in class.